It's scary because I'm trying to raise my family in this neighborhood.
The victim was intentionally struck by a motor vehicle.
Chase, then run down. A driver intentionally targets a teen, then takes off. The 16-year-old who was struck by the SUV died in hospital. Police believe there were two people in the vehicle that hit him. Farah Morelli joins us live from the scene near Woodbine and O'Connor. Now, and Farah, what do we know about what happened out there?
Dwight, what we know happened is that the boy was hit almost right where I was standing. Just moments ago, police actually removed the yellow investigator's tape for the first time since 2 o'clock in the morning. This is the first time we've actually been able to see and get a sense of where everything happened. What we know from police is that this teen was intentionally followed. There was an altercation and he was hit. What we don't know is why. So to take you back, it all began with a call early this morning at about 2 a.m. When police got here, that's when they found the teen lying on the ground. He was taken to hospital, but where he was actually pronounced dead. But hours after that, police were still on scene. There was still a heavy police presence. Police tape was up, and that's when we learned that this wasn't just a hit-and-run investigation. Homicide investigators arrived, and we learned that this teen was intentionally hit. Now, police sources told us that the boy was running away from the vehicle when he was hit, and meanwhile, police have not released any images of the vehicle involved in this. However, I should say that CBC Toronto obtained some surveillance video from a nearby resident, and that resident told us that this footage was shared with police and that investigators were especially interested in this truck that you were looking at, this dark-colored SUV. It's seen traveling up Bracebridge, turning north on to Woodbine. That's the same direction the suspect vehicle was fled. And that is something that police were looking at closely today. We spoke to a witness who was out walking his dog early this morning. He said he was approached by a vehicle around the time that this occurred. Here's what he had to say.
Black truck came along this way with the speed, two people inside, and the passenger asked me if I see a young boy running around in the area. I said no. And they used some obscene language and say that I think they broke into her vehicle and left the door open. They leave my effing car door open. That's what exact words they said. And they speed around, went that way, and I continued to walk that way.
Dwight, I should say that we did reach out to police to ask whether there were any reports of break-ins in the area, and they said they didn't receive any.
Okay, Farah, what are we learning about the victim tonight?
So, Dwight, just within the past 30-40 minutes, a woman came to the scene, and I spoke with her. She was visibly upset, emotional. She said she is the grandmother of the victim. Her name was Gertrude Drever. She said her grandson, Matthew Drever, was the victim in this whole incident. She said he was a grade 10 student. She says that he doesn't even live in this area. He lives over near Leslie and Gerrard. She has no idea what happened, what he was doing here. She was clearly very upset, and here's more of what she had to say.
You two people that run down my son like an animal, you know, where's your compassion? What were you thinking when you saw this young kid? What were your intentions? You could have got out and talked to him or something instead of running him over like a dog. I hope you go to jail. You ever hear of karma? Karma will come back to you one way or another.
Now that the police tape is down, Dwight, this is still very much an active investigation. More homicide detectives arrived within the past couple of hours, and they're still canvassing for more video and more photographs. They're asking anybody who may have seen what might have happened early this morning to reach out to them.
Thank you. And a 14-year-old boy is dead after he was assaulted outside his school in Hamilton. The teen was a student at Sir Winston Churchill Secondary. Police say they originally responded to a serious assault and the student later died. Investigators also say they're looking for cell phone video of the incident. The trial into the alleged gang sexual assault of a woman inside a Toronto bar began today. The two accused were the bar's owner and a manager. Each have pleaded not guilty to the alleged assault that took place nearly 3 years ago. Alicia's son was in court today.
This morning, we heard testimony from a friend the alleged victim was staying with. He says he remembers seeing her matted hair and smudged makeup when she returned from a night out at College Street Bar. The court heard she was accompanying a friend who was taking a bartending course hosted by Gavin McMillan, who was a well-known flair bartender at the time. When the class finished, the friend left, and the alleged victim stuck around with DeJesus Carrasco at the bar. According to the Crown, video surveillance from inside the bar shows the alleged victim getting more and more intoxicated. The Crown says DeJesus Carrasco can be seen making sexual advances. Sometimes she swats him away, sometimes she doesn't. The Crown says McMillan eventually joins them. The woman is allegedly in and out of consciousness throughout the night, with sex acts being performed on her, all of them allegedly high on cocaine. Today, the sexual assault nurse who examined the victim the day after described the injuries and bruises found on the woman's body, but couldn't definitively say whether they were the result of a sexual assault. Later this week, security camera footage from inside the bar from the night of December 14th, 2016 will be shown to the jury. It allegedly shows the woman alone with the two men for several hours. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Appealing to the public today to take our message seriously about climate justice and doing everything we need to do to keep carbon emissions down to net zero as soon as possible.
Climate change activists shut down the Bloor Viaduct this morning. Around noon, police moved in and started arresting the demonstrators. We'll have more on that protest and others like it around the world today coming up. It went down to the wire, but the province and CUPE managed to reach a deal late last night, averting a strike that would have closed hundreds of schools. But as Lisa Shing reports, that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be labor peace in GTA schools.
After a weekend of worry, parents packed lunches and sent their little ones to school today.
You know, the kids are a little disappointed, but you know, any kind of break in the routine is not good.
Wondering who is going to take day off, how we're going to manage all this. So we're glad that they're back.
With just hours to go until the deadline, the union representing 55,000 education support staff inked a deal with the province that includes a modest wage increase, a renewal of a fund put in place in 2018 to hire more staff and teachers, the same sick day package, 11 fully paid days and short-term leave at 90%, and a $20 million funding increase.
We didn't give up anything.
And that could help teachers in their ongoing negotiations.
Well, I think, we've set some groundwork for them to have some really good conversations.
And I will continue to focus on landing deals in good faith that keep your kid in class.
But can the government keep that promise? This former deputy education minister says it will be tough.
Is low-hanging fruit, just from a financial point of view. Well, there's a difference between millions of dollars and almost $1 billion required to walk back some of the damage that the government has done.
Namely class sizes, which the government said it's increasing over the next few years, a controversial move the teachers' unions and many parents oppose.
I can imagine that, it's not over, unfortunately.
We're still really concerned about the increase in class sizes.
I just hope that the government can realize what a tough job that teachers are doing.
On the other hand, the deficit is actually closer to $7 billion instead of the $15 billion the PCs originally said it was. So it seems like there could be a bit of wiggle room in the government's budget to give the teachers what they want. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Canadian political history will be made in Gatineau, Quebec tonight. All 6 main party leaders will take part in tonight's official English language debate, the most ever in a federal election. You are looking at them arriving in just the past few hours at the Canadian Museum of History. The 2-hour debate comes exactly 2 weeks before voting day and begins in just under an hour right here on CBC television. As part of our election series, 5 issues in 5 weeks, we are looking at different voter groups from seniors to millennials. This election, people born between 1980 and 2000 make up the largest block of eligible voters. Shannon Martin joins us live from the University of Toronto's Hart House, where student polling is set up right now. Shannon.
That's right. So last election back in 2015, Elections Canada did a pilot project. They put up polling stations at 40 university and college campuses across the country. Well, this time around, it's triple, so more than 120 schools are taking part, and the idea is to get more young people in the voting booth. And I can tell you, we saw that in a big way today. And we also spoke to a young man who's put his university career on hold so he can run this election.
Do you have a driver's license or a student card with you?
Yes.
Great. I'll walk you to the polls now.
There's that old notion that young people are apathetic, but check out this lineup.
I really want to exercise my right to vote.
First time voting, yeah, just turned 18. That's cool.
This election, young people may hold the most power. According to Abacus data, people born between 1980 and 2000 make up the largest block of eligible voters. And they have plenty to say.
I think student debt is also a big thing.
But there's also climate change, just that it's just this, like this constant threat, you know? I want a future, you know what I mean? I don't want that taken away because, you know, whatever politician doesn't care about that.
I really feel like people should take us more seriously. We are the biggest voting bloc now, you know, the millennials, so we kind of count. So please, you know, do things that don't just benefit people that have different perspectives because they're older from a different time. Think of us too.
Feeling unheard and often left out. This advocate is part of a nonpartisan group called Future Majority. For weeks, youth volunteers have been visiting schools just listening.
We have on-campus polling right now for 3 days. Thousands of students are going to be voting across the country. This is huge. Where are the politicians? They're not here communicating their issues and their platforms with us.
I'll grab like 2 of these. What's surreal about it is the fact that it's possible. Like a year and a half ago, I was studying this stuff, and then wild.
That's crazy. Do you know them?
No.
Sean Manners put his PhD on hold to jump into politics. The 29-year-old is running for the Greens and is the youngest name on the ballot. Woo! For Beaches East York. Some young people, yeah, they can connect with you. They see somebody talking about what they care about, and hopefully it energizes them.
Yes, yes. I mean, one of the largest things that I think has been a draw for young people is they need hope. And if you aren't in university right now and you're looking for hope, you're not seeing it anywhere. If they want to see change, which is what I'm hearing, I'm here to let you guys know you really need to get out and vote.
So Dwight, the big question is, though, will they turn up when it counts? And they certainly did last election, the Liberals taking the lion's share of millennial votes last time. So we'll see what happens this time. But polls at campuses here will be open until October 9th.
You know, they have the power. Let's see if they use it. Thank you, Shannon. And to keep the conversation going about the power young voters have, CBC Toronto is bringing together a group of undecided and first-time voters to discuss why it's important that they go to the ballot box in a few weeks. I'll host a discussion at the Mars Discovery District. You can find details on how to attend on our CBC Toronto Facebook page. We'll also be streaming the discussion on Twitter and Facebook. You can join the conversation there. And tonight's debate begins right after our show at 7 p.m., and we will get you ready for it a little later. A climate protest that began during the morning rush hour ended about 5 hours later with police moving in and making arrests. Fellow protesters cheering as members of the group Extinction Rebellion were led away in handcuffs by police. The group blocked the Bloor Viaduct starting around 8 this morning, forcing police to divert traffic. The group says these types of protests are necessary to try to bring attention to what they're calling a climate crisis.
What's happened in politics right now is that they've been taken over and they're highly partisan. So decisions aren't necessarily made that's good for the public. People are playing politics. So citizens' assemblies are designed to give voice to the people, to bring democracy back to the people.
Toronto police say 20 people were arrested. Similar climate demonstrations took place in cities across Canada. Kayla Hounsel has more.
In Halifax, protesters moved to disrupt the morning commute to take a stand.
That it's time to act. We don't have the luxury of time as far as our climate goes, as far as the pollution goes, especially the water. We need clean, safe drinking water for everybody.
But police were a step ahead. Officers shut down the McDonald Bridge, a major artery into the downtown core, before protesters even arrived.
Well, a lot of people have been inconvenienced, and I can tell you, speaking personally, that the agenda that some of these folks have been trying to bring forward that we were coming on board with has flipped the switch this morning.
Protesters wanted lanes for pedestrians and cyclists to remain open, but police shut those down too, citing public safety concerns.
Riding a bike eliminates any cost to the environment. So in the big picture, it's an economic issue. The healthcare costs that come with burning hydrocarbons, the savings that aren't recognized.
They call the protest Bridge Out. The group behind it, Extinction Rebellion.
Extinction Rebellion is 100% peaceful and nonviolent.
It's an international movement started in the UK last year, demanding countries, including Canada, bring in policies that will reduce carbon emissions to net zero within 6 years.
Healthy forest! Rise up!
From the Burrard Street Bridge in Vancouver to the Bloor Viaduct in Toronto, thousands of Canadians struggled to get to work.
I'm sure glad you guys are doing your job. I know.
In Edmonton, some drivers got out of their cars as they were blocked from the Walterdale Bridge.
If he wants to make changes, go and do some research, go work for a university, go run as a member of parliament.
We're going to be far more inconvenienced by the devastation created by the climate crisis.
In Halifax, more than a dozen were willing to be arrested. A small price to pay, they say, considering what's at risk. Kayla Hounsel, CBC News, Halifax.
Those millennials are going to keep fighting for climate change. Speaking of change, we're supposed to be getting a little cooler, but I'm looking behind you, and I like some of those numbers right now for this time of year.
Yeah, that's just it, Dwight. It is October, so generally we do expect things to start cooling off, and sure, at night they are, but you know, we're actually going to be treated to some very fine and somewhat mild, or at least seasonal weather for the next few days. And these are some of the numbers we're looking at. Here we are into the evening. It's still holding on at 17 degrees, unofficially a high of 18 today, 17 in Markham, Oshawa, Mississauga. And usually, not always, but usually we're a little warmer over here than St. Catharines. Well, St. Catharines a little cooler there at 16 degrees. And you can see kind of the winds prevailing generally from the west today, at times a little bit gusty. We also had a little bit of cloud cover, and that shows up so nicely on my satellite here too. What shows up nicely is the clearing, the way it's trying to pull away, and that is the trend as this very broad and strong ridge of high pressure is going to be building in, and it is going to be our dominant weather feature for the next little while, and it's actually a good thing. Okay, at night it gives us the clear skies and some of the cooler temperatures, that's true, and so to the northwest of the city, spots like Owen Sound and Dufferin, there's the risk towards Mount Forest of some frost advisories in place there, but into tomorrow, sunshine during the day, and although we have those clear, cool nights, it means with that sunshine we warm up pretty quickly at least. So 5 tonight, and Dwight, the high tomorrow with that sun, 18.
Looking good. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
A lot of the paintings take risks. A lot of the stories are hard to think about or hard to look at as they happen in front of you, but they're extraordinary, and they're coming to Toronto for the first and last time in our lifetimes.
The works of Peter Paul Rubens are here in Toronto. Coming up after the break, what it took to get the masterpieces to the AGO. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
I'm Dwight Drummond here at the Mars Discovery District. CBC Toronto, in partnership with Mars, is bringing together a group of young voters to discuss why it's important that they exercise their enormous power. They have the ability to choose who becomes our next leader. So will they? Join us for the conversation here at Mars or online. For more information, head to the CBC Toronto Facebook page. There are some masterworks coming to the Art Gallery of Ontario. You can see many of Peter Paul Rubens' paintings this weekend. Yelena Adzik joins us now with more on this. Let's start with the significance of having these masterworks here.
It is astounding, Dwight. You walk in, and first of all, the pieces are so large. You forget that they fill up the whole wall, and they also are from all over the world. This is really an incredible gathering that they've put together. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a sense of these paintings, because one of them, for example, Massacre of the Innocents, we owned this. We already do at the AGO. Fabulous, just a story there with billionaire Ken Thompson. He bought it, there you look at it, at a London auction in the early 2000s. He paid $115 million for this back then, Dwight, and then gives it to the AGO so that the rest of us can enjoy it. Enjoy is maybe not the right word, though. It's pretty dark, as are a lot of these pieces. The colors are astounding. The bright reds, the golds, the blues are so vibrant. The light is incredible, the way that it's depicted. But a lot of these, you know, there's a lot of religious allegory that's going on, and a lot of comments about war. They seem like they're very violent, but he's actually making an anti-war kind of message. He's really putting in your face some dark imagery to get you to think about things in a different way, especially since they're rendered so beautifully. It's quite a trip for the mind. I'm going to give you a listen right now to the woman who helped to bring this all together. Her name is Sasha Suda. Have a listen to her.
It's tough. A lot of the paintings take risks. A lot of the stories are hard to think about or hard to look at as they happen in front of you. But they're extraordinary, and they're coming to Toronto for the first and last time in our lifetimes, so I definitely wouldn't miss it.
Okay, you had a chance to speak to those who brought these iconic works to our country, right?
I really enjoyed my conversation with Stefan Jost. This is the man who is the director of the AGO, and I asked him, you know, these are the most expensive, among the most expensive paintings in the world. They're from so many different countries. They're from princely estates, Dwight. There are some from museums and churches, cathedrals. I'm going to give you a listen to him explaining to us how it all actually shakes down.
You're asking somebody to part for 3 months or 4 months with a masterpiece. There are lots of delicate negotiations. And those negotiations can be everything from like wining and dining somebody to making trades where we will lend something to them and they will return it. To say, for example, paying for conservation of a painting. Conservation is very expensive. So sometimes, say with a church, you can say, we'll conserve this painting if you agree to send it to Toronto for a couple months.
Isn't that interesting?
That's a fair trade.
Yeah, and the interesting aspect of this, too, is that when they brought them to Toronto, you have to imagine the insurance behind this. You can't have more than one painting on the same plane, of course. They all have to travel differently. They came here in unmarked vans, and it just so happened that it was around the time that we had the environmental protests.
Ooh.
So everybody, can you imagine the sweat
Security,
on the brows?
no problems here. Yeah.
These are they're priceless in many ways, and so it was a big deal. That one there, that panel that you see, it will never travel again because it's just, they can't take the risk. It'll be too fragile. When you get up close and personal, the blood there is rendered, it's almost 3D. It's like you see the paint, the thickness of the red paint. So it really is quite spectacular, and it's cool for two reasons. One is that the AGO encourages you to get right up close and personal and see them in that kind of detail. But then the second reason it's great is that it's free with your admission. A lot of times these blockbuster shows, they make you pay more. Yep. And now they are keen on getting the younger audience is in there, Dwight. They're doing that now with $35 a year for a pass, as opposed to, you know, more north of $100 before. So it's working. They're getting crowds in there, and this blockbuster exhibit is for sure going to do just that too. So the 12th, that kicks off October 12th to January 5th.
I put on my reading glasses and go and take a look myself.
Look up close. I'm telling you, it's cool.
Thank you, Yelena.
See you soon, Dwight.
Looks like a good time, but now the city of Vaughan is being sued for millions for shutting down this Caribbean music festival. why noise complaints are at the heart of the lawsuit, coming up next.
This wasn't just a party or fest. This was a celebration.
The city of Vaughan, a councillor and bylaw officials are facing a $25 million lawsuit tonight. It is alleged they wrongly shut down a Caribbean festival because of noise complaints. But as John Lancaster reports, internal emails show the festival may not have been to blame.
The Summer of Sound Festival was supposed to run 3 days over the August long weekend last year, but instead it lasted just one night. Cut short after the city of Vaughan pulled the permit, leaving dozens of acts and thousands of paying customers in limbo.
The manner in which it was done.
Lawyer Leslie A. Lewis claims it was an abuse of power by a Vaughan councillor and bylaw officials.
And when we elect officials to represent us, they do not have unfettered power to instruct city officials, city employees on how to conduct their jobs.
Internal city emails obtained through a Freedom of Information application show Vaughan councillor Sandra Young-Racco seemingly pressured city staff to shut down the festival. The statement of claim alleges she'd received 3 noise complaints from constituents. Young-Racco did not reply to questions from CBC News. The emails also show a bylaw official doubted the noise in question came from the Caribbean Festival, instead suggesting it came from another festival on the same night.
This was a celebration of our culture.
The lawsuit claims the Caribbean Festival was shut down within hours of receiving the councillor's complaint. Organizers got no warning or a chance to rectify any perceived problems, it adds. The city cited overcrowding and excessive noise, something Lewis claims isn't accurate.
Our client had a sound engineer on site, so the decibels were constantly monitored, and so the bylaw officer, at no time did they bring anybody on site to measure the decibels, or did they provide any contradictory evidence to demonstrate that our client was in breach.
The allegations have yet to be tested in court. The city, well, it declined to comment. As it stands, no statements of defense have been filed. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
And remember, if you have a story you would like us to look into, we would love to hear from you. Just send us an email, torontotips@cbc.ca. Toronto Police has released its mental health and addiction strategy. In it, the service is promising to better train its officers to deal with people experiencing a crisis.
It is our roadmap to success. It is essential that our members have the training and information they need to safely and respectfully respond to the needs of people during a moment of crisis. Officers need to be informed to be able to make the appropriate decision in a moment in a way that meets our strategy's goals in preserving health and safety and zero death.
The strategy was developed with the police board, its mental health subcommittee, and an external advisory panel. Officer training will focus on de-escalation techniques, bias-free policing, risk assessment, and mental health and addictions awareness. It will also teach harm reduction principles. The strategy also commits to updating training materials with input from community members who have dealt with mental health and addiction issues. Toronto Public Health is launching an awareness campaign to encourage families to get their kids immunized.
Certainly having public education campaigns and creating environments where people recognize that vaccines are safe, they work, and they play an important role in preventive health, I think is part of our work.
The campaign, which includes ads in bus shelters and videos on social media, focuses on what children have to say about vaccines. It's being launched as a part of the city's effort to combat vaccine hesitancy, which are people who are reluctant or refuse to get their kids vaccinated. Now, according to Toronto's Medical Officer of Health in Canada, about 20% of parents are vaccine hesitant. With research showing that it's a growing number in Toronto, TPH hopes these ads will have parents talking and discussing vaccines with their kids.
The Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institutet has today decided to award the 2019 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine jointly to William Kaelin, Sir Peter Ratcliffe, and Greg Semenza for their discoveries of how cells sense and adapt to oxygen availability.
3 scientists, 2 Americans and 1 Brit, are sharing this year's Nobel Prize for Physiology. They are being honored for their discoveries on how cells sense and adapt to the availability of oxygen. Their work has paved the way for new strategies to fight anemia, cancer, and other diseases. I always enjoy the Nobel Laureate Week because it ends with the big Peace Prize on Friday. But Monday's here, Colette, and we are liking those temps out there. And you say it's going to continue for a little while.
It is going to continue for a little while, Dwight. We're in for a treat this week, quite frankly. And it does lead towards the Thanksgiving weekend at the end. I'm not sure it's actually going to hold on quite that long. It's probably not, but we've got a few nice days to come, and these are your headlines then of what we're looking at. So we do have the clear skies clearing out anyway, so clear skies overnight tonight. Now, That means in the morning we have sunshine. It allows the temperature to fall off tonight so we get some cool readings. So it's a chillier start to the day, but that sunshine helps us to warm up, and we're going to see these temperatures near seasonal. In fact, even at times a little bit above, like today. And right now we're holding on at 17 degrees. It's still quite lovely. Hamilton just a little cooler, 15, 16 in St. Catharines at the moment. And this is kind of this clearing trend. We did have a little bit of extra cloud cover here today, and the wind's a little bit gusty, mostly coming in from the west. But that's all kind of pushing away. And what's happening is a big ridge of high pressure is building in, and as it does, it's going to keep the precipitation either off towards the east of us, or it's going to block it so that it has to go around to the north of us as well and head in that direction. And the Great Lakes in between, especially the lower Great Lakes, even if the center of this ridge begins to move off towards Quebec, it's still going to protect us for several days yet. So that pattern just repeating, clear skies at night, sunshine during the day, a few days of that, then we get towards the end of the week and it starts to change a little bit. In the interim, though, there is that risk of frost to the north and west of the GTA and a few frost advisories in those regions. 3 to 5 degrees for the overnight lows. Tomorrow, another very nice day, but with actually more sunshine than today. However, the wind's more of a little bit east to southeasterly, so at times that could be a little bit cool, especially if you're near the lakeshore. Wednesday, sunshine, 16. Just knocking us back to seasonal on Thursday too. It does get breezier towards the end of the week as the next system moves in, and the timing at this point, Dwight, does look like rain showers moving in Saturday.
Still a good week, even though Thanksgiving is going to be a little wet. Thank you, Colette.
Yeah, it's a great week. You're welcome.
Yes, it is. If you've ever paid for a seat upgrade on a flight, you know it's supposed to come with a fair share of perks. But what happens if the airline doesn't deliver on those extra services you shelled out for? Turns out you're not entitled to a refund. And now passengers are going public with their complaints. Rosa Marcatelli has the story.
How tall are you, Rick?
6'4".
So it's no surprise then that this Air Canada ad caught Rick Brosato's eye.
Are 6'4" or 4'6". Get all the comfort you need.
On a trip to Hawaii in April, the Borsatos paid an extra $500 to upgrade from basic economy fare to comfort economy, which offers perks like seats with more legroom for the added cost. When the airline had to change planes and couldn't deliver, the couple says they were told they'd get a refund. Instead, they got 20% off a future flight and a $200 e-coupon.
Just being treated like you're an afterthought. Like you just, we have your money and that's, sorry you weren't happy. Maybe we'll do better next time. Here's a discount.
The airline points to a little-known rule. It's on page 30 of 116 pages of rules that passengers automatically agree to when they book. It's written by Air Canada for Air Canada, and in it, it says those services aren't guaranteed and there's no compensation. WestJet and several other U.S. airlines have similar policies.
Unfortunately, that's the conditions by which the Canadian Transportation Agency has allowed the airlines to promote their fares.
Air Canada says it makes every effort to ensure that services are provided to the best of its abilities, and the no compensation rule was included for additional clarity. The couple and dozens of others have filed complaints with the Canadian Transportation Agency. They want the regulator to use its powers to force Air Canada to drop the rule. After hearing from Go Public, Air Canada offered the Borsatos a full refund if the couple agreed to sign a non-disclosure agreement and drop their complaint. They refused.
The rule has to change.
Canada's new passenger protection regulations don't address the problem.
You put your finger on one area for future improvement, which is the way that various fare classes are advertised, for the carriers to make clear what you're getting and what you're not getting and what your recourse is if you don't get what you're supposed to get.
In its written response to the Borsatos' complaint, Air Canada says its rule is reasonable and that it had to change planes after the 737 MAX jets were grounded. The Borsatos are now waiting to hear what the regulator decides. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
To abandon the Kurds, who have been our allies for decades, is so wrong.
Yet again, Donald Trump is prepared to betray people, and in this case, people who have stood with us.
You're looking at video of U.S. troops leaving northern Syria and now Turkish military vehicles taking over. Kurdish forces are calling today's surprise move by President Trump to withdraw from the region a stab in the back. We'll bring you the very latest after the break. Donald Trump's sudden decision to pull back U.S. troops from northern Syria near the Turkish border is prompting strong reaction today around the world and also at home, even from some of his closest allies. They are calling the move irresponsible and a big mistake. Lindsay Duncombe has more now from Washington.
There are a couple of reasons why this is causing alarm bells to ring. One of the reasons, of course, is what it means for the Kurds, these forces that fought alongside the U.S. in the fight against ISIS, and the message that it sends to other allies that the United States could potentially work with around the world in the future. The other worry is about the captured ISIS fighters, which will now be the responsibility of Turkey. And if this fighting escalates, will there be a chance for ISIS to increase its fighting and its potential for insurgency? What is different about this criticism of the president on this specific move is where it is coming from, including some of his most ardent supporters, such as Senator Lindsey Graham.
The Kurds stepped up when nobody else would to fight ISIS. If we abandon them, good luck getting anybody to help America in the future with radical Islam, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS. If you believe that Iran is a threat to the region, they're the biggest winner of this. And you may be tired of fighting radical Islam, but they're not tired of fighting you.
Fox News is reporting that the Pentagon was blindsided by this decision. And today, Defense Department officials put out a statement saying that we do not endorse a Turkish operation in northern Syria, adding that the U.S. Armed Forces will not be involved in any such operation. Donald Trump is defending this decision in a series of tweets. He says that he was elected to, quote, get out of these ridiculous, endless wars, and says that it's up to Europe and the countries in the region to deal with the issue of the ISIS fighters. He also has some threatening language for Turkey itself, saying, as I have stated strongly before, and just to reiterate, if Turkey does anything that I, in my great and unmatched wisdom, consider to be off limits, I will totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey. I've done before. They must, with Europe and others, watch over the captured ISIS fighters and families. The U.S. has done far more than anyone could have expected, including the 100% capture of the ISIS caliphate. It is time now for others in the region, some of great wealth, to protect their own country. Ending that, the USA is great. So what we see is Donald Trump delivering on a promise that he says he made in order to get elected. But a lot of people are saying delivering on this promise could have some serious consequences. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
You're looking at Gatineau, Quebec, and the National Museum of History. We are just minutes away from the only English debate to feature all 6 major party leaders. We'll get you to the setup for the big night after the break. It's debate night in Canada, a chance for all 6 leaders to speak directly to voters. Before we get you ready for that, let's take a look at where the polls have each party right now. Our data shows pretty much a dead heat for the lead between the Liberals and the Conservatives, each hovering around the 34% mark, the NDP at 14%, the Greens just below at 10%, followed by the Bloc at 5%, and the People's Party of Canada polling at 2%. And here's the seat projections each party could win if an election were held today. We've estimated the numbers based on how voting intentions now differ from the last 3 general elections. So right now, clearly a 2-horse race. Our numbers have the Liberals with a 39% chance of winning a majority, the Conservatives at about 7%. You can delve into the numbers for yourself at cbc.ca/poll tracker. Now to tonight's debate. 6 federal party leaders will face off in a televised debate. It's the first time all the leaders of major parties will go at it in English. Julie Van Dusen is with our parliamentary bureau in Ottawa. And Julie, we heard from a couple of the contenders today.
Right, Dwight. So the 2 front runners were out early this morning, and it wasn't long before they were trading insults. Of course, they were at separate events. Justin Trudeau was with some teachers. They were almost a backdrop for him, I would say. There was supposed to be a strike today. That's what everyone feared. That was averted, but there he was with teachers, basically dumping on Doug Ford about cuts to education and smearing all Conservatives with the same brush as a bunch of cutters and austerity lovers. So Andrew Scheer was making an announcement today that admissions to museums would be free if he ever becomes Prime Minister, but he was only too happy to heap scorn on Justin Trudeau. Let's start with Trudeau.
We're going straight back with this approach that, looks to nickel and dime our kids and mortgage our future.
It's quite disgusting that he was trying to politicize kids' education for his own personal partisan gain.
All right, let's talk about the debate itself now, Julie.
Well, it's going to be as busy as a 3-ring circus at the Museum of History tonight. Think back at the TVA debate last week that had 4 candidates, 1 moderator. This will have 5 moderators and 6 candidates. So it's going to be a lot to manage. The topics will include affordability, environment, and immigration. And of course, Justin Trudeau will be everybody's punching bag. He's got the 4-year record to defend and controversies to dodge, like SNC-Lavalin and the whole blackface revelations that happened. Now, Andrew Scheer, of course, will be dumping on Trudeau, but he will also be trying to turn things around for himself. He had a really bad week last week. He did badly in the TVA debate. He was on the defensive on abortion and on his dual Canadian-American citizenship that no one knew about. And he's also being accused of not having a platform yet. So anyway, he's got to turn things around. Watch for that. Elizabeth May and Jagmeet Singh, both, vying for 3rd spot. They're after the same kind of voters, but they have to also worry about Justin Trudeau poaching their votes. So they're both going to be reminding everybody of his broken promises, and I'm sure you're going to hear a lot. You bought a pipeline. So Bloc leader François Blanchet, he doesn't really care about anyone else except Quebecers, and he'll be looking for anybody in his way, but mostly after Trudeau. Finally, Maxime Bernier, we don't know how he's going to act on stage. He's had a very controversial but low-profile campaign. He'll mostly be going after Scheer, who was with him in the same party and his old leadership rival. So, Dwight, all of this busyness, just everyone's goal is to get a knockout punch or some kind of zinger and hopefully lure in some undecided voters. And, if anyone falls off the stage, well, that would be, let's hope that doesn't happen. But they get a chance to do it all over again on Thursday en français.
It's going to be very interesting to see with the 6 people up there tonight. Julie Van Dusen joining us from Ottawa.
It's going to be something. It's going to be like Thanksgiving with my family.
Have a good night, Julie. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Debate night, as Julie mentioned, each leader will tackle 5 topics, largely determined from questions sent in by voters across the country, covering affordability, the environment and energy policy, Indigenous issues, national and global leadership, as well as political polarization, human rights, and immigration. There will also be opportunity for open debate between the leaders, all in front of a live audience. We've got you covered wherever and however you want to tune in. It all starts in just a few minutes. Watch right here on CBC Television, CBC News Network, CBC Gem, or the CBC News app. All right, stay with us. Colette will be back after the break with a final look at your forecast. We're back in just 2 minutes. I'm Dwight Drummond here at the Mars Discovery District. CBC Toronto, in partnership with Mars, is bringing together a group of young voters to discuss why it's important that they exercise their enormous power. They have the ability to choose who becomes our next leader. So will they? Join us for the conversation here at Mars or online. For more information, head to the CBC Toronto Facebook page.
Hi, I'm Arthur Simeon, host of Accent on Toronto 2019, CBC's annual comedy showcase right here at the Danforth Music Hall. I'm going to be here with Toronto's top comedic talent on Wednesday, October 9th, 2019. Please go get your tickets today. Tickets are available at Ticketmaster. Please go get yours today. No, I mean like right now. Like go. Like right, go get. All right.
It's almost time for tonight's federal leaders debate. You're looking at the crowd of supporters outside the venue in Gatineau, Quebec. The debate begins in just a few minutes. Before we get to that, let's tell folks how their week is going.
Pretty good, I'd say.
We're not complaining at all.
If the weather has anything to do with it, boy, oh boy, we're looking at a beautiful week ahead of us. And if we just start with the short term, clearing trend overnight tonight, 5 degrees. So it is going to be a little cool, as I've been saying, kind of tomorrow morning. It takes a bit of time to get going, but we will have full sunshine, and that's going to help us to warm up. And by the time we get into the afternoon, just an absolutely beautiful day. So mostly sunny skies. The winds are going to shift around towards the southeast and a high of about 18 degrees. But the thing thing about this weather feature that's giving us this beautiful air mass is that it's going to stay in place for a few days. So we're going to kind of repeat this. I'm going to go home for the rest of the week, right? And we'll just play this over and over because that's kind of what we're looking at. It will start to change as we get towards the weekend. No, I'm not either.
Nice way to go out like this. That is it for us tonight. Mike Wise has your next local news tonight at 11. We will see you back here tomorrow. Now, the federal leaders debate is coming up next. 6 party leaders going head-to-head in Gatineau, Quebec at the beautiful Canadian Museum of History. You can see it right there. Enjoy the debate, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow.